Story 1. I am at a low enough point in my life where I would rather have a guaranteed $500,000 than a chance at $5 million. Story 2. The 500,000. This is a classic behavioral study in economics where the social setting influences the chances people will return half. Usually the odds of getting half of the 10 million back are low. Editor note: I never expected this comment to gain so much attention. The original poster is describing a version of the dictator game. I recommend reviewing the results, as the likelihood of a return is often very low. The original poster strictly limited the question to returning half, not to mixed percentages. Use that boundary as a benchmark. Story 3. I would choose $500,000 for myself. I barely trust the people I love and know, let alone a stranger off the street. I simply lack faith in humanity on this one. Story 4. I would take $500,000. That is enough to accomplish my short-term and medium-term goals. I think most people would split it, but I am not willing to take that risk. If I were the random stranger, I would split it evenly. Story 5. The funny part is that if you reverse the question, most people would say they would share $10 million. Story 6. $10 million to the stranger for 2 reasons. Although $500,000 would be a fantastic amount of money, it is not as life-altering for me as $5 million could be. So I am willing to risk it. And because I think people as individuals are more likely to split the money if they know what you chose than Reddit gives them credit for. For what it is worth, I do not have a high opinion of people in general. Story 7. I would give $10 million and hope I can live with being a good person. Story 8. The stranger. My life has felt much better since I started doing things because of the positive effect they will have on others rather than their effect on my life. Counterintuitive, maybe, but it is true. I am happier now with who I am than I ever was. Laughing out loud, I still hate myself, but at least not for new reasons. Story 9. I choose 10 million. If they are a kind person, the payoff benefits 2 people. If not, I have lived my entire life without windfalls and will continue to be fine. Story 10. It is not about mistrust of people. A complete stranger who has never met me and will never have to speak to me again. Why would they give me anything? I would take $500,000 without any doubt. Story 11. I would give $10 million to a stranger. I have enough money to survive without $500,000. While a stranger may not have a penny to their name, there are many more poor people than rich, so the odds are in my favor that someone who needs it will receive it. Story 12. I would take the $500,000. That would make a difference in my life right now. I just could not trust someone enough to split the $10 million, even though that is what I would do if I were chosen to make that decision. Story 13. $500,000 is a game changer for me. I would not let greed get in the way of that. Story 14. Forget it. $10 million for the stranger. It is life-changing, far more than $500,000. And from my perspective, you never had the money in the first place, so I would not cry about not receiving it. Story 15. Prisoner's Dilemma. Right now, I have $0. My choice yields a definite $500,000, a possible $5 million, or possibly $0. Option A is a definite win. Option B involves no loss. The amount does not make much difference to my decision. Both outcomes would make me comfortable. So it is probably a 50-50 choice that I would make on a whim. The other person starts with $10 million and can either keep $10 million or lose $5 million. Framed that way, I do not think most people would choose to return $5 million, even with the added social factor of giving it back to the person who gave it to them. Some would, but I do not think it would be close to 50-50. If I picked option B, I would do it knowing I would most likely get nothing back and that I simply felt like being kind to a stranger. That would satisfy me if I was in a good mood. If at that moment I felt misanthropic or just extra poor, I would pick option A and have no regrets. Story 16. I've seen this somewhere. Definitely 500,000 for me. At 10 million, the majority feel that losing 5 million is too great a loss, even though they would still receive 5 million. Human minds can be extremely corrupt. As an Asian proverb says, even if there were a bowl large enough to hold the entire ocean, it would not be large enough to contain human greed. Story 17. Society has shifted toward a me-first attitude, and others often justify it by saying they do not need it. Story 18. $500,000. A bird in the hand is worth more than 10 in the bush in this case. Story 19. I have seen enough Am I the Asshole and Am I Overreacting posts about $50 to know how that would go. I have $500,000 in my bank account. Story 20. $10 million for someone else. That is life-changing money. I would not care if I never saw any myself. I would just be happy knowing someone had some luck in this awful world. Story 21. $500,000 because I would not be able to live with myself if a stranger gave me nothing. Story 22. 10 million for a stranger. Be the change you want to see in the world. Yay, naive optimism. Story 23. $500,000. There are at least 70 million Americans I do not trust to receive that money. Story 24. I would take $500,000. That is enough money to change my life. It is too much to risk coming away with nothing from a stranger. Story 25. $500,000. I would even be happy to take that amount and split it with the stranger. I am at a point where taking my dog to the vet means I have to skip meals and delay my medical care for the week. I cannot pass up the money, but I can give some to the stranger. I just do not think I would cope very well if I gave $10 million away and they did not give me even $250,000. Story 26. I am taking $500,000 because my faith in strangers is quite low and that amount solves nearly all my problems. Story 27. My faith in humanity is not high enough to walk away from the guaranteed $500,000. Story 28. I would share with them. If the recipient were smart, they would give me half because of the implications. I do well enough that $500,000 would not change my life. Story 29. The stranger says it is simply more money for someone, even if I do not get a single cent. Story 30. I have only 10 months to live, so I am taking $500,000. Story 31. I can donate 10% of it and still have a positive impact on a stranger while also being able to buy a house and live comfortably myself. Story 32. I would take $500,000. I do not know the other person and do not care either. Story 33. I couldn't gamble $500,000 given what it could do for my family. Story 34. $500,000 for me because people are shitty, greedy bastards. Story 35. Take the $500,000. Most people are selfish when it comes to money. Story 36. The rules allow them to refuse, but not to avoid retribution. So if someone wants a quick $5 million and a lifetime without worrying about a human-sized snail hunting them across the known universe, they'd better give me my half. Story 37. I would take the $500,000. If I were a stranger who received 10 million, I would give the giver half without a doubt. Story 38. 500,000, of course. Why would I trust a stranger? I am not insane. I can do my own charity. Story 39. I will take the money for myself. I have learned that we live in an extremely selfish world, and generosity gets you nowhere. The other person will take the 10 million and run. Story 40. As an American, I have seen my countrymen vote away food stamps so that the obscenely wealthy can have just a little more money. I am taking 500,000. Story 41. 500,000. Most people are selfish and will have some bogus reason in their heads to keep the entire 10 million for themselves. Story 42. I worked in retail for almost 20 years. I take $500,000 in a second. Story 43. $500,000 without thinking twice. Did we all forget how we behaved during the pandemic? Story 44. I would only take the $10 million option if I could decide the type of person who receives the money and they are not allowed to share it with me at all. Story 45. 10 million to the stranger. Never underestimate the power of guilt. Just ask my mother. Story 46. Maybe I am selfish, but I will not trust any stranger with 10 million. I am a minority, and there are more people who want me not to exist than people who want me to. The people I trust to share with are, by definition, not strangers. I will take 500,000 and share it with people I care about. Story 47. $10 million. If I receive nothing in return, nothing will change for me, but at least someone else will be happy. Story 48. $10 million for a stranger. If I'm barely making it today, I'll still be barely making it tomorrow. Someone is fucking rich and enjoying their life, and that's on me. If I take $500,000, I'll finally be able to buy a house. The rest will go into savings, but I'll still have the same income one had before. No real change, except now I'm financially responsible for a house I couldn't afford on my income. If the stranger shares $5 million, I assume we'll both have new houses, new cars, several vacations to look forward to, and money in the bank. If they do not, I'm no worse off. Story 49. Take the $500,000. People get greedy with money. I doubt anyone would give away half to a stranger. Story 50. 10 million. Life is a fucking struggle right now, but in a year I'll graduate, and if everything hasn't gone wrong, I'll be earning a half-decent wage. There's a chance that the money helps someone who doesn't have the same opportunities and needs it more. And if I get 5 million back, fuck yeah. Awesome deal for everyone. Story 51. Absolutely. I do not care whether they share or not because that amount would not change anything for me. I hope we develop a good friendship, and I will enjoy watching the outcome. If they are willing, I would guide them on diversifying into cryptocurrency, advise them to avoid telling people, and set up an annuity-style account to help protect their money and themselves. Being rich, even a millionaire, does not change much, so this is an amazing opportunity to change someone's life. Story 52. $10 million. If I get some back, I will be happy. If not, I hope they do something good with that money. Story 53. I was going to say the 10 million option until I saw all the responses. Jesus Christ, people, have some fucking faith in your fellow man. Story 54. I would give 10 million with all the goodwill in the world, while subtly implying that if they do not give me my half, my reaction might be drastic. Story 55. If the stranger thinks about sharing the 10 million, it will not be with you. They will give it to family and friends. Take the 500,000 all day long. Story 56. I would take the 500,000 because I know the vast majority of people would stiff me for half of the 10 million. If I were the recipient of 10 million with the option to split it with the giver, and I knew it was truly random and no strings attached, and that I had received it by pure blind luck and the giver's generosity, I would split it with them. Story 57. $10 million. Otherwise, there is someone sitting on $9.5 million burning a hole in his pocket. Eat the rich. Story 58. I am taking $500,000. I work in customer service, and I don't trust anyone to be nice or to do the right thing. Story 59. I think the vast majority of people, if told they had just received $10 million from a stranger but could give half away to a person they had never met and would never see or hear from again, would keep the money. So I am effectively being asked whether I would prefer to receive $500,000 or that a stranger receive $10 million. I would choose the former. Story 60. Zero chance I rely on a stranger to do the right thing, especially when there are no repercussions for not sharing. Even though 500,000 is substantially less than 5 million, it is still life-changing. This is a stupid question. Story 61. I would give $10 million and expect nothing in return. The opportunity to change someone's life would mean more to me than $500,000 would. Story 62. $500,000. People are absolute assholes. 50% are supporters or apologists of Make America Great Again. A decent chunk of those outside that group are also unpleasant. I only give a 90% chance that even my best friend would split it with me. Story 63. $500,000 for me. I live in the United States. Half of our country is selfish and would take advantage of another person at the drop of a dime, thus making me selfish and completing the circle. Story 64. Guaranteed. $500,000 every time. Clears all of our debts and sets us up for a very comfortable home purchase. Grasping for anything more would be greed to the point of folly. Story 65. It depends. Am I allowed to choose the stranger, or is the stranger selected at random? If I can choose, I will 100% choose the $10 million to give to someone who clearly needs it. I do not care if I receive half. I will have helped another person. If the stranger is chosen at random, I will take $500,000. Story 66. I'll put myself in the stranger's position. If someone somehow gave me $10 million with the hope they would get half, I would already be signing a check for $5 million. I could not live with myself knowing they were cheated out of a guaranteed $500,000 because they trusted a stranger. We are all in this together. Share the wealth and good fortune so we all benefit. Story 67. I am not willing to pay $500,000 to run a psychological experiment on a random person's generosity. The guaranteed sum provides freedom and security that are more valuable to me than the slim chance of an even larger but uncertain payoff. Story 68. This question appeared on a game show. The answer is that you should only trust yourself when it comes to strangers. The game's objective was to convince a stranger to let you have the money while promising to share half the winnings. The options were: both wrote their own names and got nothing. Both wrote the other person's name and shared the money. Both wrote the same name and then faced a separate decision to share or not. Most people did not share, even when they claimed high moral character and were school teachers, nurses, or police officers. Humans are trash. Story 69. I would take the $10 million. I figure there is a better than 10% chance the person will not be terrible. Story 70. Take the guaranteed cash. With proper investing, you can turn that into something really nice. The stranger option is less than 50% in your favor, in my opinion. Story 71. What a fun question. $500,000. To quote someone I asked, I do not even think my family would share, even if they knew it was me. Story 72. There are many comments, but people do not understand the question. The question is, would you pay $500,000 for a chance that a stranger with $10 million will give you 5 of it? It changes your perspective. Story 73. 10 million to a stranger. It's just money anyway. If they keep it, they must need it more than I do. Story 74. I'd give someone 10 million if they share. If not, I've lost nothing. Story 75. I know how the world works. The stranger will be Bezos, Zuckerberg, or someone similar. I will take 500,000. Story 76. I'm retired and in okay financial shape. I'll be fine. The hard part is finding the right person. My top choice would be Jose Andres, who runs World Central Kitchen. Story 77. I don't have that kind of money now. If I end up with nothing because the stranger doesn't share, I won't be any worse off. Story 78. I am a gambler, so give the $10 million to a stranger. A 50% chance at $5 million has a higher expected value than a 100% chance of $500,000. Story 79. I have never met anyone stranger than my wife, so I guess I am getting $5 million. Story 80. 500,000 invested at 8% compounded grows to 1 million, 2.3 million, and 5 million after 10, 20, and 30 years. 0 compounded at 8% remains 0. You do not just lose 500,000. You also lose the opportunity to play the long game with that capital. Story 81. The last few years have shown me that most people are selfish, so I do not expect a randomly chosen person to share any of the money with me. I will therefore be selfish and take $500,000. Story 82. I would give 10,000 to strangers if it would not affect me much. If a stranger does not share, that person must have been very desperate. I am okay without 5,000. Story 83. After 53 years on this planet, I would choose 500,000 for myself. Story 84. 500,000, because in my experience human greed is limitless. They will keep the 10 million, thinking it is not even enough, and later flaunt how successful they are. Story 85. Can they share only half or nothing, or can they choose how much, if any? A stranger tipping me 10% of their gains for my help is far more likely than a 50-50 split. Story 86. 10 million, of course. They will likely keep it for themselves, but I do not value money very much and would rather enjoy the gamble. Story 87. I would choose the latter. Either way, I would still be able to sleep at night. Story 88. If I were the person offered 10 million and told that someone had helped me and given up 500,000 to do so, I would split it with them. If others knew and there was social pressure, I would expect them to do the same, as if this were a television show. Within those confines, I would probably choose the 10 million and take the chance. Story 89. What if you were the other stranger given the choice to take $10 million or split it with the original person? I guess most people would choose to split it, but what would you do if the $10 million were actually in front of you or already in your bank account? Your mind would likely perform mental gymnastics when you see those extra zeros in your bank account compared with making a hypothetical decision. Story 90. I'm a big believer in putting good into the world. Whether they share half with others or not, I would give a stranger $10 million. I live a blessed life, and if you help others do the same, the world becomes a better place. Story 91. Honestly, if I received $10 million from a stranger and was asked whether I wanted to share it, assuming I knew they were not a billionaire or something, I would definitely share. I think most people would as well, so I will take that chance. Story 92. I just end up in the same place with the latter. Even my ex-wife would not be that much of a jerk. A stranger might, and I do not care. Give everything to a stranger. Story 93. Give a stranger 10 million, and if they don't share, rob them of all of it. Story 94. I feel this is how our tax code is set up. They usually refuse to share it. Story 95. $5 million is significantly more life-changing than $500,000 to me, so I would take my chances. $5 million would let me retire comfortably and allow me to give some to my parents and siblings. $500,000 would get me to retirement a few years sooner but would not change my long-term trajectory. As a backup, I can reach out to them if they kept all the money, tell them what I was offered, and ask if they would be willing to give me $500,000, which should be an easier decision for them. Story 96. I would give the stranger $10 million. Even if they did not give me half, I would hope they put it to good use. $10 million in anybody's hands in the current world would create far more jobs than I could with $500,000. Yes, they may waste the whole amount, but that is a chance I would take. Story 97. It feels like they would at least give me $500,000 and hopefully more. I would take my chances. Story 98. If a person knows nothing about me other than that I gave them $10 million, I choose the $10 million. Otherwise, I choose the $500,000. The odds are high that someone would choose to punish any group they dislike rather than feel grateful. For example, if the person is a hardcore misogynist, I would have given $10 million to someone who has no chance of reciprocating. But if they do not know anything about me, whether I am part of their group is not part of their calculation. In that case, I believe a significant majority of people would default to fairness. Story 99. 10 million in the hands of the same random person can do some good, but it could also do harm. There is absolutely no guarantee they are a good person or that it will improve their life. Several of my family members received large lawsuit payouts in the millions, and not a cent remains today in liquid or physical assets. Give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. Story 100. I would accept the guarantee at this point. I do not trust other people to do the right thing anymore. Story 101. $10 million. $500,000 would not dramatically change my life, but $5 million would. Story 102. If someone would not give up 5 million, humanity is lost. Who would refuse? Money is already effectively infinite. Story 103. I want to believe that giving the stranger the bigger bag would work out, but the events of the last decade, give or take a couple of years, have really done a number on my faith in humanity. I will probably play it safe and take 500,000. Story 104. If I were that stranger, I'd give half the money. For Pete's sake, who would keep 10 million and say, oops, too bad for you? You would have that on your mind for the rest of your life. Pick me as the stranger. Story 105. I would give 10 million to a stranger because I know I would share half if our roles were reversed, and I would feel vile for the rest of my life if I did not split it. Story 106. Taking the 500,000. I have lost faith in the empathy of strangers. Story 107. No. After Donald Trump served his first term, and even more so after his second term, I am convinced that at least half the world does not care about anything other than themselves. Story 108. 500,000. In both my personal and professional life, I have dealt with too many people who became evasive about paying me a fee of 5% on similarly large sums after agreeing in advance. I therefore have a very dim view of the chances of someone paying me 50% with no prior agreement. Story 109. I would give someone else $10 million, whether or not they would share it with me. Story 110. I think you need face-to-face interaction with the stranger who receives the money. If the stranger must meet me to collect the money and look me in the eye, they might be more willing to share. If a random person receives $10 million and is told that someone they have never seen chose to give it away, what incentive is there to share the money? They would probably assume the person who gave up $500,000 did not need it. Story 111. Call me an optimist, but I think there is a greater than 10% chance the random person will choose to share the money with me. Story 112. The stranger will definitely receive 10 million. Kindness begets kindness. Story 113. What does stranger mean here? Can I research strangers and choose one? Or does it mean a random person? Story 114. If a stranger met certain conditions, such as being a decent person and not already wealthy, they would receive $10 million. Imagine thinking you were doing a good deed and Donald Trump received the $10 million. Story 115. Take the 500,000. My parents always told me never to trust strangers. Story 116. There is a chance to turn 500,000 into 10 million. The Standard & Poor's 500 index alone might double it every 10 years. Story 117. $500,000. I can try to grow it, and people get so weird about money that odds are they will not share it. I would absolutely share half if I were the stranger. Story 118. 500,000. Even if we assume zero tax liability, I have already had many instances of people refusing to reciprocate respect and generosity, even those who kept telling me I was a good friend. We now live in a society where the phrase "nobody owes you anything" is thrown in your face at every turn. I am financially savvy and should be able to increase that amount tenfold before retirement, and that is enough for me. Story 119. I would take the $500,000. You would be rolling the dice on the stranger. With an extra $500,000, I could retire much sooner. $250,000 would pay off my mortgage and car loans, and I would invest the rest. In a couple of years, I would quit my job and retire. Story 120. Greed is the worst and ugliest of all human sins because you never know when it will strike. Greed is only visible when people have enough. Most people do not, so it remains hidden. We are surrounded by greed. I would take $500,000 without a second thought. Story 121. People are awful. I am taking the 500,000. If I were in the other position, I would split it. Story 122. I will take a chance at splitting. I do not need 500,000 or 5 million, so why not help a stranger and possibly get more? Story 123. I am taking the guaranteed $500,000 because I do not believe the stranger would split $10 million with me. Story 124. If the stranger were Norwegian, Swedish, Danish, or Finnish, I would choose 10 million. Otherwise, 500,000. I really trust my Nordic neighbors. Story 125. According to game theory, I am better off deflecting and taking the $500,000. Story 126. I am not greedy. I will take the smaller amount, pay off my home loan with it, and live like a king, or maybe a duke. Story 127. Given how people are these days, I do not trust anyone to be charitable with money, especially when one stranger only knows that another stranger helped them. Maybe if it were a much smaller fraction they might, but $10 million is a huge amount and $5 million is significant. It would be just as easy to keep the entire $10 million. I would rather take the guaranteed $500,000. I do not love that this is my answer, by the way. Story 128. I've punched myself in the balls so many times trusting the goodness of humans. I guess I'd give them $10 million and hope I don't get another story about how shitty humans can be. Story 129. I will give away the 10 million. The difference between $5 million and $500,000 is that 5 million would make me comfortable for a while the smaller amount would not. The larger amount could set me and everyone I care about for life. Besides, if the person does not share, I am not worse off. I did not lose anything. I never had the money in the first place. Story 130. No, I would pay it forward to a stranger. Who knows where they might be in their life? I am able-bodied enough to get by, and after just losing my 27-year-old son in July, the things of this world feel fleeting, complicated, and petty. How fun would it be to have $10 million to divide and share with random strangers? The best part would be remaining anonymous. I would even say it was in honor of Max. Life is too short. More money, more problems. Billie Eilish is correct. Story 131. As a recovering gambling addict, I would definitely bet on the possibility of getting $5 million. Story 132. I do not trust the kindness of strangers nowadays. They would probably film themselves denying me my share and post it online for clout. Story 133. I live paycheck to paycheck. I am not destitute, but I could certainly use the money. It is hard to say in the hypothetical, but I believe I would choose $10 million. For now, I have food to eat, a roof over my head, and more love than I deserve, so I think I would take the risk. I also strongly believe in sharing wealth. My answer might be different if I were in more dire straits. Story 134. In a world where 77 million people voted for Trump, I am taking the guaranteed cash. Story 135. I do not care how hard up I am. I was not getting anything before, so I am not losing anything if the other person does not share. I am upvoting anyone who says 10 million, because anyone who would take 500,000 instead of trusting others cannot be trusted. Most people are good and will return the favor, especially if they know. Story 136. If I were not this close to homelessness and food insecurity, I would accept the $10 million, hopeful for a kickback but willing to accept none. I am so close to the edge that, at this moment in my life, I must take the money. Story 137. 10 million for a stranger and just hope for the best. I started out with $0 from anyone in this situation, and if it ends the same, oh well. Story 138. 10 million. I do not count on handouts to continue my existence. If others choose to share, I would be grateful. Even if they do not, that is fine. I take solace in having helped someone who needed a hand. That, in itself, is enough to give a scrap of meaning to this empty life. Story 139. I would pick the stranger. The odds of it being someone very poor are fairly high, so I think they would be more likely to use their money to help others. As long as the money goes toward helping people, I am fine with receiving nothing. Story 140. 10 million is much more money than 500,000, and I would rather risk making their lives and the lives of others better. Story 141. I would commission Netflix to make a documentary, perhaps a 4-part series. Part 1 is based on my family history and the emotions leading up to the decision. Part 2 follows the random stranger's family based on what is known at the time and would be produced after the decision. Part 3 focuses on my decision to give the $10 million away. Part 4 focuses on the recipient's decision to either share with me or take it all. It is a win-win for me. I will likely make $500,000 back from the series, residuals, and from making the rounds of television interviews. If I receive half, that is a $5 million bonus. Story 142. $10 million to a stranger, no question. It is not that $500,000 would not be life-changing, but I will be okay. Story 143. Give the stranger the $10 million because even if they do not split it, at least I would know I changed someone else's life for the better. They would probably split it, right? On a Reddit thread, most people said they would split it if they were the recipient. Days went by, 1, 2, then a week, and I still had not heard anything about the money. I felt anxious but told myself these things take time, and even so a little nagging voice kept saying I should have taken the $500,000. Years passed, and I did not go a single day without thinking about that money. It stung less than it did at first. I cannot explain the state I was in. I am calmer now, but it is not just about the money. They never reached out or thanked me. I never even knew whether the Money had really improved their life as I had told myself. What if it ruined them, as you hear about with some lottery winners? Or what if they died after getting the cash and had no one to inherit it? I had all those thoughts and more. Of course, it is too late now. I should have taken the $500,000. Story 144. Laughing out loud. I would never believe a stranger would split it with me. 500,000 it is. Story 145. 500,000. I could make myself a comfortable life with that. But if I were the stranger making the choice, I would absolutely split the larger amount. Story 146. It is a dog-eat-dog world. Take the $500,000 and help that stranger to a reasonable extent. Consider paying for his college, and if he is homeless, help him get back on his feet. I would not trust a random stranger with that amount of money. Story 147. 500,000 is enough for me. I do not want 5 million. It would only complicate my life to the point of suffering. Story 148. Take the 500,000. The options are: keep it. B. Ask someone for money. Story 149. I am taking 500,000. I can barely trust people I know. I definitely do not trust strangers. Story 150. To trust a stranger to share what I have given him is like trusting a toddler with a handgun. Extremely risky. $500,000 would enable 99% of the global population to get out of any financial hardship with a financial advisor. Story 151. I would love to be able to give $10 million to a stranger for a $5 million chance, but my faith in the world as a whole is long gone. $500,000 would let me buy a house outright. Even after taxes and maintenance, I could save so much of my paycheck that I would be financially secure for the rest of my life, assuming I keep this job or a similar one and never receive another raise. Once my savings were restored, I could manage without a fixed job. Story 152. Why do you ask? Are you gathering data on people? Are you working for Palantir or for Vladimir Putin? Story 153. I have been alive long enough to know that people rarely do the right thing unless it benefits them. I would take $500,000 and put it into a retirement account. Story 154. I would keep $500,000, not because I fear the stranger would not share, but because that sum in the wrong hands, however unlikely, could cause terrible harm. It is more money than I could ever hope to have in my lifetime, and I am not sure what I would do with $10 million. Story 155. 500,000 because I do not trust another person to avoid letting their greed get in the way. Laughing out loud. Story 156. This reminds me of a Monopoly experiment. In trials, one player started with more money, received additional cash when passing go, and used an extra die so they moved around the board faster. They consistently won and insisted it was skill, not the advantages they had been given. They became cocky and mocked the other player. So yeah, this is an easy 500,000 for me because I doubt the other person would share. Our nature is, fuck you, I earned this advantage by being good. If you were good, you would have gotten it too. Story 157. I have met enough people to know that the chances they will share are very low. Story 158. 500,000 is too much to ask. It is life-changing for 99% of people. If you asked me the question for 50,000, I might have to think about it. I think I would trust someone I know to make the decision, but a random stranger, probably not. Story 159. I asked for 10 million and hope they give me half. Either way, I helped someone out. Story 160. Against all economic logic, I am giving $10 million and would give $5 million if the situation were reversed without a second thought. Perhaps I would get screwed, but taking $500,000 and leaving $9.5 million on the table would make me feel greedy, and it would not sit right with me. I think you would be surprised how many people would be willing to give $5 million back. Story 161. People are focusing on the money they would receive. From a moral perspective, what if the stranger would use that money for hateful acts because they are ignorant or malicious? If so, I am unlikely to receive any money, and I would have made the world worse by giving it to them. Since 2012, I have had very little faith in my fellow human beings. I would accept $500,000 to ensure that $10 million do not go to people who are evil and lack empathy. Story 162. A bird in the hand is worth more than two in the bush. 500,000, please. No need to be greedy. Story 163. In a world full of idiots who idolize Donald J. Trump, take the sure money. Story 164. Take the $500,000. No one has ever given me anything regardless of how nice or accommodating I have been. I am a supervisor who takes care of his employees, and they will throw me under the bus at any opportunity. You would be lucky to get a meal from them. Story 165. In the United States, expecting someone to split the money with you is often considered impolite. Some people view this as reflecting a cultural emphasis on individualism. Story 166. Option B. If the stranger keeps everything, the universe regards the money as a seed for future financial flow to me, so it does not matter. Story 167. Life taught me a long time ago that most people have no honor or moral principles. The risk is high. I am taking my $500,000. Story 168. A guaranteed $500,000 is too much money to pass up on a gamble. If I were on the other side, I would probably choose to share, just in case I am not being told the whole truth and refusing to share could mean I receive nothing. Story 169. No. Give me that 500,000. If it were more than 20 years ago, I would have said yes, but in today's age, no. Story 170. 500,000, because people have proven time and time again to be selfish, cruel, and untrustworthy. I would not trust 10 strangers to do anything to help me, even if it cost them nothing. Story 171. I would choose the 10 million risk and hunt down and torture the person if he does not share with me. It really depends, though. Do they have to look me in the eye when they announce their decision? Or are they cloistered in a room with lawyers signing their choice? The context will greatly affect what most people will do. Story 172. Sounds like a simplified version of the prisoner's dilemma. Interesting to read about or watch on YouTube if you have not heard of it. The scenario involves two prisoners. If neither prisoner betrays the other, they each receive a 1-year sentence. If both betray each other, they each receive 2 years. If prisoner A betrays prisoner B while B remains silent, A goes free and B serves 3 years. The prisoner's dilemma shows that betraying the other person is the dominant strategy. Although mutual cooperation can yield a better collective outcome, cooperating risks the worst individual outcome if the other defects. The Wikipedia page gives real-life examples such as climate change, animal behavior, and addiction. Story 173. Life so far has taught me that most people will not share, and while I would love to get lucky and find a stranger who would give me $5 million, I am fairly certain I would not be that lucky. I would accept $500,000, but I would share it with people after I pay my bills. I probably would not have much left after taxes. Story 174. I'll take $500,000, thanks. Relying on the kindness of strangers has done nothing for me in my life. I'm not about to give away $10 million with no strings attached. Story 175. I cannot trust a stranger to do anything, so I am taking $500,000. Story 176. If I were the stranger given the money, I would give half back without a second thought. But I've learned that many people do not think the same way. It's not that I need the money. I just do not trust others to use it for good. I would keep the rest and spend most of it helping people, donating it, or buying food, clothes, and necessities for those in need. I would keep a little for myself in case I need to leave the country given how things are going. Story 177. I do not think they would give me $5 million, but there is a good chance they would give me $1 million. 10% for them, double for me. Story 178. The problem with 10 million is that people will be upset when they see the taxes, so they will likely agree to give you half and then end up giving nothing after taxes. Story 179. Place us both in the same room and give me a knife. Then I will choose the 10 million option. Story 180. If I had 10 million and knew someone else had taken that chance, I would split. But if it were my decision, I would not risk that they would split. Story 181. I would give a stranger $10 million because my life has been too sad and depressing as it is. They probably deserve it more than I do. Story 182. I would give the money. The stranger might need it more, and I am blessed enough that my happiness is not tied to money. Whether they keep it or not is their choice. If they share, that is great. If they do not, that is a decision they will have to live with. I will be happy either way. Story 183. According to game theory, choosing 500,000 is the better option. Story 184. I am taking the 500,000 for the same reason I am not taking the 10 million. I would keep all my money. Story 185. Where is this happening? I live in the United States, and if it is a random stranger off the street, I am taking $500,000. Story 186. 500,000 every time. That stranger does not give a fuck about me, and this is not a Disney movie. I am not getting shit. If there is one thing humans are good at, it is greed. Story 187. If I were handed $10 million and given the backstory, I would share $5 million. I know many people who would not. I'll take the $500,000. Story 188. Most answers are either to keep the money because everyone is out for themselves, or to share it because it is the right thing to do. Almost no one is considering expected value. The stranger only needs to share the money with you 10% of the time to make it a mathematical break-even. I am certain that more than 1 in 10 people would share if they knew a stranger had gifted them $10 million. Therefore, sharing is by far the mathematically superior choice for increasing my personal wealth, regardless of whether it is the morally right action. I understand that not all dollars are equal and that people intuitively prefer a bird in the hand, but given the amount stated, I would say that unless you or your family are in a dire financial position, it is correct to offer the $10 million. Story 189. 500,000 is enough to do anything, but not enough to do nothing. I would give the 10 million and have a target for vengeance should I not get the 5 million back. Nothing like having justification and purpose. Story 190. Selfish option. I live in a country that elected Donald Trump to the highest political office. I do not trust my fellow human beings for shit. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.